to introduce a next person, an inspiring presentation on strategic decision-making when it comes through sentiment data and how it can be used to drive success. I'm missing a business analytics class at my university at this moment, and I think I would have definitely learned something from this, more from you than I would have learned in university. We share the same alma mater, Hotel School The Hague, which I'm very proud of. I'd like to welcome on stage the founder and managing partner at Forsite Creative. It's an F&B consultancy focused on design and hospitality, having done over 200 projects in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Gustavo de Hostos, please.
Thank you very much. Can you guys hear me? Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that we can all agree that we sit in a region that is at the forefront of some of the most iconic and progressive hospitality and real estate developments in the world. Just to back this up a little bit and substantiate, we're talking about a market that's going to be probably valued at 55 billion from a hospitality perspective by 2030. That's up to a 7.5 compound annual growth rate. We're talking about, only in Saudi, about 110 billion USD that are going to be invested in hospitality. This market specifically has seen a year-on-year 35% growth this year. We're talking about a pipeline of 600,000 rooms, out of which 75% alone are in the GCC. I think these are just some of the numbers that allow to substantiate this unparalleled growth. And I think it's really driven by vision, investments, and all of the international talent that is involved here to really make this the epicenter of the future of hospitality. Now, from our perspective, despite these promising market conditions and having access to all of this world's best talent, we feel that it's still very much limited how much actionable data is being used for planning purposes. Why are we still planning all of these iconic projects, predominantly based on past successes, based on benchmarks, based on some cases of surveys, strategy reports, or gut instincts? Just to tell you a bit about myself and our company, we've been in the last 10 years involved in over 200 projects, and we've done everything from master planning, strategy, been involved in conceptualization, interiors, front of house, back of house designs, and we've seen the whole chain, whether it's at the development stage or all the way down to the operational stage. And we have noticed that as a company, we really sit at this stage at a pivotal moment where data is changing decision-making across every industry. And that pushed us to ask ourselves, how can we harness this power, and how can we use this to push the boundaries even further of all of the projects that we're collaborating in? That's when Forsite Data was born. About 2 years ago, we developed our own technology arm that allows us to collect, analyze data in order to inform decisions. And unlike a lot of the other data that we've seen around in the market, this one is much more sentiment-driven, market-driven, and allows us to track digital profiles to understand travel, exposure, and allows us to use that to really drive decisions or agree on some of the things that we typically disagree around the table. So let me show you what we do. This is a generic user case. Considering we're in Dubai, we've picked Dubai. And we decided to say, let us collect 30 waterfront hotels in Dubai, everything from the creek down to blue waters. In addition to that, let us add an additional 15 premium mixed-use real estate developments. And let us try to identify a pool of 30,000 digital profiles that frequent and visit these. That is what we're going to be referring to today as our target audience. This target audience, interestingly enough, led us to a million sentiments. These sentiments will be talking about various topics, and we can actually analyze and join into some of the things that we'll be showing you today. Let's understand this audience, just to give a sense of who we're talking about today. We're talking about 35% residents, the rest being tourists, a pretty average or well-balanced male to female ratio. Females being typically 20 to 29, males 30 to 39 as the highest. And besides those that are local or residents here, we have visitors predominantly from Saudi Arabia as number one, 7%, followed by the UK, Germany, and the US. How do we use this data? Firstly, we might want to understand where do they move around when they're in Dubai. You could pretty much track anything nowadays. We've specifically said to ourselves, which hotels that are not waterfront are most frequented. And then we start seeing that from those 30 hotels, the next in line is the Kempinski Mall of the Emirates, Bab al Shams, Jumeirah Emirates Towers. This information is used often by developers who are looking to identify new locations and understand where their current captive audience is already moving around from. You might say, I'm an international brand or I'm based abroad. How can I use this for my international perspectives? Or you might be a ministry. We've actually done an interesting trial. Which other countries around the world are people happier in and review with higher and positive sentiment than in the UAE, besides the UAE? And we got these top hits: Maldives, Lebanon, Mauritius, and then South Africa. And then we asked ourselves, if we go to Maldives specifically, which are the hotels that are most visited by our audience? And we get the top hits. Now, you might ask me, Gustavo, how can we use this information? We, in the last 2 years, have actually been categorizing the type of topics and sentiment into these three key categories. Design-related is somebody talking about architecture, interior design, landscape, or we go into soft elements, price point, service, efficiency, service, staff friendliness, atmosphere, music, or facilities, something that is very important at programming stage, F&B establishments, restaurants, parking, working areas, etc. And what we'd like to do to understand any given market, but specifically this market itself, is that we do our sort of topic sentiment SWOT. The topic sentiment SWOT, basically, in the horizontal axis, will say what percentage of those 30,000 profiles would typically mention a specific topic when reviewing hospitality, F&B, or these mixed-use developments. And then in the vertical, we would have what is the average sentiment. The average sentiment would be then drawn out into 4 quartiles, top right being the strengths of the market, high mention, high positive feedback. Bottom right would be the weaknesses of the market, highly mentioned and below average. Top left would be the opportunities, and bottom left would be the threats. And here we see, for example, from design elements perspective, that audience, the 30,000, when visiting these properties around here, they comment a lot on the whole journey and wayfinding around properties. They mention views very positively. Of course, we picked waterfront, so that kind of makes sense. Outdoor areas, architecture, interior design. If we notice architecture, interior design, they're just at the line. There's opportunities to even hire those. Something that if we go a couple of years back was not as important or as recognized and noticed. The big opportunities, landscaping and the sense of privacy. That's because a big part of the data set was actually 5-star and luxury properties. The weaknesses, accessibility, the threats, lighting, air quality, noise levels. There's so much information, so I'll try to go a little bit quicker, limited time. Facilities. People mention more frequently F&B establishments before pool and beach and before rooms in that set. So when looking at a specific type of data set or a specific type of development where we know we're attracting similar people, we can actually identify where should the weight, where should the importance of certain design decisions, investment decisions go to. We see the opportunities here as wellness facilities, event spaces, residences coming up tremendously as we know, and sports facilities. Huge weakness, parking, and some of the threats, family-friendly facilities. And same thing we do with the soft elements. Staff friendliness, concept are some of the things that are most identified, up-and-coming atmosphere, etc. And if we go into more specific things, we even start seeing chef, and of course the usuals in the negatives, price, customer service as working points. We can split the data set, as we mentioned before, between residents and tourists. Interestingly enough, what we're showing here is the statistical probability of a specific topic, when mentioned, of increasing the overall of a 5-star rating. So you see here that some of the top hits have a 0.6 star influence on an overall topic for a specific review. Design related is actually, to our surprise, and this is the first time we do this kind of research, was more statistically likely to impact positively a review than facilities and soft elements. And perhaps it's us in the type of projects we're involved in, but very often we focus on the facilities program, we focus on the soft elements, operator, and we don't specifically make sure not to jeopardize or compromise on the whole component of design and the impact it's going to have on a user experience. For visitors, much more important, followed by facilities and then the soft. For residents, the order changes. Soft is more important than facilities, but we'll dive a little bit deeper. You could also select or identify which are the top topics. So we've done top 3 topics here in terms of frequency of mention. So for visitors, it's views, it's outdoor areas, it's architecture. For residents, outdoor area, accessibility, interior design. So there's a little bit of a switch there. Facilities, of course, rooms, F&B, beach and pool. Residents, F&B, parking and arrival, extremely important. Am I programming a hotel at the end of the crescent of the palm and I'm more inwards focused, or am I more looking at the outside market? In that case, how do I adapt my strategy, my planning, my overall master planning? And then from soft elements perspective, we go here, visitors, it's staff friendliness, which is actually a mix also for the residents, but then efficiency and F&B quality. Whilst for the residents, you're talking about atmosphere and you're talking about concept. Now, we've been challenged a lot in the past with regards to, this is predominantly based on historic data. How can we start doing some projections, some predictive? So what we've started doing is actually recording this data over a period of times, or identifying and classifying the data over a period of times. And we've been able to do so. And I mean, the timeframes can be customized to whatever is required. We've done here anything before 2022, all of those sentiments, 2022 and 23, and then 24. And then we start understanding what kind of variance do we identify in the importance, statistical importance of and likelihood of an increase in a specific review. And then you start identifying that although views for that shoreline type of property is extremely important, it hasn't really changed much. And the trend seems to be that noise levels in acoustics is something that's extremely important, followed by interior design, accessibility, and wayfinding. Now, you might say, I need to understand how to plan my facilities or where to prioritize, depending on whom I'm attracting. Here we've split it between residents and visitors, but this can be done based on personas, based on any kind of profiles. We see here that sometimes some of the facilities that we don't focus a lot on, or don't have much of, such as family-related, might not have a higher frequency of mention, but they might have a much higher impact when somebody notices it and when the right crowd is attracted to it. Almost as strong as F&B establishments and stronger than the actual condition, layout, and design of the rooms, which is quite interesting. Nevertheless, F&B was once again the highest in this set. We like to also think we're not catering to all. As a market becomes much more developed, much more competitive, such as the one we're in here, we need to go a little bit more focused. We see hotel groups, developers focusing on certain personas, certain audiences, and trying to capture this kind of themes. We've taken 3 pretty generic ones here: the wellness seeker, the sports enthusiast, and the digital nomads. But the possibilities are endless. We use AI to understand how these digital profiles write, what kind of lingo they use, and then we can classify them. And then we start seeing, how do the facilities change based on who these are? Just to show a little bit of the validation and that the AI is actually capturing the right kind of content, we see here that sports enthusiasts, of course, very much focused on the wellness and the related type facilities. The digital nomads, very much on the working spaces. Working spaces clusters everything, co-working, business center, or working facilities within F&B establishments. And then the wellness seekers, it's all about wellness and F&B. Now, this is the generic finds. You can go very deep and understand really what their nuances are, what the opportunities are, and what their global exposure is. So F&B, being so important across the different sets, let us dive a little bit deeper into this. So we asked ourselves, from the target audience, we know a lot of people are actually looking to attract brands or concepts. What are the brands that are not within the set of hotels that are most frequented? Now, this is frequency of visit, so you already understand for the international or the visitors, what are those brands? But we feel that that's not enough. The experience of those who went there might not have been a pleasant one, or might not have been comparative to other equivalent brands that they visited elsewhere, in London, for example. So we like to do it this way. How often was the brand mentioned? So we know there's real brand recognition. It was not just any restaurant. It was specifically, let's say, Amazonico. And once the brand is mentioned, how was the sentiment related to the brand, positive or negative? And we do that across those 30,000 digital profiles. And then we develop this, which gives you the top right quartile, when the brand was mentioned and when the sentiment was positive. And then you know that's an opportunity. You can then cross-check that together with frequency. It's a lot of data, and I have limited time, so I'll go quickly. This is us overlaying hard and soft elements on food and beverage. This is for the 30,000, when they go anywhere locally or internationally. And what we try to understand here, we cluster it into the design elements and the soft elements, or hard and soft. Because hard, typically, you want to program in advance to actually opening up the restaurant, or might take a much bigger CapEx investment to actually redo the restaurants, whilst the soft are typically low-hanging fruits that you can actually change and adapt throughout the process. So what we see here is quite interesting. For this audience, accessibility to the restaurants is extremely important from a hard component. Views, outdoor areas, exterior design, tableware, which I've never seen it before, that's starting to become important, just here. The actual opportunities here, privacy, landscape, and we started also noticing artwork and art as a general sentiment and topic. When it comes to the soft elements, staff friendliness, always the strongest. If you want to save a restaurant completely, you need to make sure that we invest in the right people, not only in the right training, because staff efficiency is actually lower and less frequently mentioned. Atmosphere, concept, etc. But rather than deep diving into a specific audience, we like to go into who are the high spenders. We split the personas into high spending versus, medium or medium, low, and low. And here we start seeing what the shifts are. And all of a sudden, important and interesting things come up. The very high spenders from this set, they look at things like technology, celebrity chefs, that are things that are still rising, more importantly, but still a weakness in the market. We can transform that into opportunities. They find accessibility and service efficiency also below par. The opportunities, the strengths are staff friendliness, atmosphere, which we've seen. F&B quality for them is on the decrease, decor is on the decrease, and then we start identifying things like privacy, landscape, artwork, again, much more importantly than for the others. From a threat perspective, we see lighting, online presence, parking, I cannot stop saying it, valet arrivals, and things like air quality and so on, which can tie back to design, can tie back to the initial programming of this F&B. I hope this gives you a bit of a taste of how data can start informing, and I hope this incentivizes us all to really explore this kind of data. Thank you very much. Please take a QR code scan.
Thank you so much, Gustavo. Amazing. So much data and so little time to talk about it. I'm sure there's much more to discuss.